Alright, so back with a motherfucking video in this bitch. I know I am late, but better late than never. And I definitely wanted to give an update on this case because, of course, I have been following this case for the past couple of years. So Zion Foster, who disappeared in January of 2022, was last seen with her cousin Jaylin Brazier, cousin by marriage. There was a lot of evidence to showcase that Jaylin Brazier was not only supplying Zion Foster with drugs, and I don't mean just weed, I mean things like LSD. There are text messages to prove this. He was also simultaneously and secretively grooming Zion Foster, because there are text messages that prove that he was incorporating like a lot of sexual things into their conversations, which is a common thing that sexual predators will do in order to groom their victims. Jaylin Brazier was 21 at the time of Zion Foster's disappearance, and she was 17. So definitely sexual predator energy in this bitch. And this guy, I mean, if you would have seen the text messages, I'm not even going to repeat them. They were so fucking disgusting. I just feel for Zion wholeheartedly, because I wish, and I think this happens a lot for teenagers, but teenage girls in particular, and it has nothing to do with parenting. It's a really tough world that we live in. And, you know, you kind of want to have your own private life, but I think also you're very naive still. And so you don't tell certain details. And I think had Zion had the courage or the confidence to speak up and let someone know that, hey, you know, this is kind of odd how this dude is talking to me. He's my cousin. Like, why the fuck is he talking about this type of shit? But I really feel like, you know, again, at 17, you're very naive. You don't really understand things like that to that degree yet because of that. So, long story short, this bastard was sentenced to 43 to 100 years in prison for the death of Zion Foster. He lied to police about not knowing where she was. He gaslighted her mother, Sierra Milton, for, I don't know how long, disgustingly. And so to me, that is proof that you hid her body because there was something that happened to her that was, you know, if found out, everybody would know that the blood was on his hands. I do think he was supplying her with LSD. I think it could possibly have been an overdose, but I also think that he was preying on her and there was something else going on in the background of this situation that maybe, no, definitely even Zion was not aware of, because again, when you're young and naive, you haven't learned about how wicked, unfortunately, the world is yet. So, point being, I am very, very satisfied, and I'm going to show a little bit, like snippets of this video to show his sentencing. I also want to point out this lawyer is just hilarious to me. I saw this lawyer represent someone else, and I don't know, whatever. I just think he's a clown, but either way, clearly Jaylin Brazier got what he deserved.
All right. First, offense variable 19 provides only 10 points for interference with the administration of justice. As such, the guidelines do not adequately account for the numerous ways in which the defendant interfered in this case. At the outset of the police investigation, defendant told police that he had not seen Zion Foster for months, even though the evidence clearly showed that on January 4th, 2022, defendant picked up Zion Foster from her home and brought her to his home. He even went so far as to tell police that Ms. Foster had a habit of running away because he had a poor relationship with her mother. While the defendant was incarcerated for lying to a peace officer, he used a prohibited cell phone to communicate with the mother of his children and ask her to do legal research on his behalf. He wanted to know whether someone could be charged with murder if a body was never found. While incarcerated, he used other inmates' phone accounts and advised his girlfriend not to show up to court proceedings. The defendant reset his phone to wipe it clean and hide his crimes.
So already we see the manipulative, covert, predatorial behavior, trying to hide evidence, trying to hide things from the mother of his children because there was something else going on there.
He advised police Ms. Foster died as a result of a marijuana overdose. Later, he told police that the victim died because of an LSD overdose.
Come on.
Finally, he returned to his original story that Zion Foster died as the result of a marijuana overdose.
You guys, I mean, I know you already know this, but you cannot die of a marijuana overdose unless it is laced with something else.
For all these reasons, this court finds that movie 19 does not adequately address the particular facts in this case. Second, the sentencing guidelines do not allege that he should have called 9. Instead, they reflect that he was only and naivete. His lies were not leading law enforcement. The case was not a rival. Opposed to one of the greatest admirers. This case illustrates that the defendant has no concern for anyone other than himself, including his closest family members. All of these facts lead this court to believe that the defendant has a poor chance for rehabilitation. As such, to ensure the protection of the community, a sentence that is longer than contemplated by the sentencing guidelines is warranted and necessary. Fourth, consecutive sentences are also appropriate in this case. The tampering involved the body of Zion Foster. The jury verdict reflects that it concluded that defendant disposed of the victim's body to conceal the way that he killed her.
Yes.
As well as to conceal the fact that he had killed her.
Yes.
The effort was followed by a torrent of lies to Ms. Foster's family and law enforcement. Defendant's admission that he disposed of Zion Foster's body to police weeks after her murder was part of an ill-conceived attempt to avoid taking responsibility for Zion Foster's death, especially considering his changing stories about the cause of her death. So for these reasons, the defendant is sentenced to 38 to 90 years with a consecutive sentence
My God.
of 5 to 10 years on count 2 with credit for 356 days served. You're to pay.
Now, I don't know if you can feel it or sense it, but he is not only devastated, but he is very pissed off.
A crime victim's assessment in the amount of $130. You're to pay court costs in the amount of $1,300. The state court administrator's office has determined that $1,300 is the average.
So it's a wrap. Justice for Zion Foster has been served. Her mother is absolutely at peace and released from the burden. Obviously, not completely, but we are all very happy to find out that this bitch-ass loser is behind bars for 38 to, what did they say, 100 years? Yeah. Hasta la vista, baby.